Good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you. And today I'm going to be speaking on several things that have been helpful to me in my life. I don't know if Tara's on today, but thank you so much, Tara, for teaching the breathing technique. I've been practicing that this morning, and today the topic really is going to be about fears. It's going to be about faith. It's going to be about love, self-confidence, and how to create a better energy level vibration and the things that have helped me in my life to do that. I'm not going to pretend like I'm the expert, but there are certain things along the way that have really been a true blessing in my life, and I want to share that. And as I've listened to other people who have done the AM Power and who have, and I love the AM Power. This, by the way, is it's very intimidating for me and very. It's an honor to be here because I feel like we have the best speakers in the world that are here helping us to learn every single morning. It's such a blessing to be able to be here and hoping to be able to contribute today to all of you. Uh, so starting out, uh, just what I mentioned, why am I practicing breathing that Tara taught, breathe in the stomach, in the chest, pause, and then let it out because it helps me to be present, it helps me to be able to relax and give hopefully the best I can give. And there's other techniques I've learned along the way, but this starts with me talking about my fear of speaking, and others has talked about that on the call. It's been interesting to hear about some of the amazing speakers we have who have talked about how when they were younger, they had a tremendous fear of speaking. When I was a kid, I remember being in class, and I thought I was like the only one because everybody has their turn to read. And as it's going around the room, it finally comes to me, and I'm trying to read, and my heart's beating so fast. I get a few words out, and I pause, and everybody in the class is wondering why isn't he reading? I just couldn't continue. So I finally keep going, finally get it out, and I'm like, what just happened? That's so crazy. But this continued to happen over time. I remember having a drama class. I don't even remember what it was, but I remember after the class, sitting on the grass outside, just kind of beating myself up, like, what is going on? Why can't I talk? Like, what's wrong with me? And I just couldn't understand because it's something I truly wanted to overcome, but I had no idea how. No idea. So later on in life, different opportunities came around, which helped me to learn to reach out more, learn to get to know people in public. So on a personal level, I started to get better at personal interaction, at talking to anybody, and that started to get better. But as far as presenting in front of other people, it became a challenge. So I'm trying to remember exactly what it was. One of my bosses told me one time, but it helped me understand the importance of providing value and focusing on the value that I'm providing. And I realized that if I can just focus in on providing value for people, it helps me do better. So one time I was doing a podcast with my boss and his boss, and I messed up like twice or right around there, and I'm like, man, I can't keep doing this. We're recording, and I'm messing up the recording. So I finally remembered this. This came back to my mind. If I can just try to provide value, forget about myself, focus on the people, all of a sudden I can present. All of a sudden I can do my part and provide some value because this wasn't scripted. It wasn't something I was reading, something that had to come from my heart. So that I did that, and all of a sudden, wow, I was able to do a better job in my presentation on that podcast by focusing on how am I going to impact the people who I'm talking to, who I'm trying to help. And so everything had to be for me. It has to be about how am I going to provide value? How am I going to help other people on the other side? If I'm on stage, the same thing. So when I first started working on the corporate side of network marketing, I eventually got on stage, and that first meeting, it was a very similar thing. Like I was scared, I'm breathing hard, and I'm nervous, but I got through it little by little. I got better. I remember when I first wanted to start doing trainings or presentations, I wanted to have everything written down. I wanted to have notes on everything. And my boss kept trying to tell me, "Hey, speak from your heart. You need to just go for it. Just give it, just wing it," type thing. And I was super scared to do it. But once I started to speak from my heart, things started to change. And I realized that I get knowledge from different places. I guess source energy that comes to me, and I can start to present and things will come to me that I need to say at the given time. So that was amazing to start to learn. And as I've moved forward, there are other things that come into play that help me to be able to present. But then I realized that it's not just for one aspect. There's so many different aspects of presenting that I realized I struggled with. So at first it was the reading, then the drama class, then it was the podcast, then it was on stage, then it was through Zoom, again, trying to learn to speak from my heart. On that note, I want to talk about speaking from your heart. One time I was at a convention, and it was in Colombia, one of the best conventions I ever attended. And that was the theme. People kept saying, speak from your heart, speak from your heart, speak from your heart. And what's his name? JR. Oh man, I gotta think of his name. The main speaker, he was talking about it, and I remember we had like an 8-year-old kid, or maybe 12, right around that, a young kid. He had to go up and speak on stage, and when he got up there, the speaker was getting off stage, the main speaker, and he looked at the kid in the eyes and he said, "Hey, speak from your heart." And like just that whole thing, it just kind of helped me realize and then cement in my mind, speak from your heart, because when we speak from our heart, we're always going to give our best value. But then I realized when I'm presenting on camera, it was the worst. Like I remember in the previous company when I would go on trips, they wanted the corporate to give some feedback about that day or what we're doing that day on the in the cruise or whatever it was. And so it came my turn to speak about what we're doing, and I had to do my take like 5 or 6 different times. And the cameraman was just kind of getting frustrated with me. I don't blame him. And I was like, what is going on? But I realized that if I can't see people, it was the worst thing. It was harder for me to speak in front of a black camera than it was in front of 100 to 1,000 people on stage. So I had to learn how to get through that. And so later on in life, I dabbled in affiliate marketing. I practiced and practiced speaking in front of the camera until I got a technique down to do that. And then the next part for me was like Mentoría de Diamantes. So on the Spanish side, they have a meeting every Monday night called what would that be? Diamond Mentorship, basically, is what it's called, and everybody's invited, and they have the top speakers, and they have Alex is there, Tony's there, Jorge's there. They take turns speaking. Well, I had to present. I'm trying to remember. I think the first one was presenting Alex, and I'm supposed to do this. And I'm just like freaking out. And again, I've been in the industry for 17 years. I've been on stage. I do all these things, but then it's like a different level because when I have peers who I'm speaking to, or I have executives who are in the room, that changes everything as well. Because then it's another stage of me trying to get around my head and how am I going to get through this. So there's different techniques, but again, I had to go back and try to provide value, try to focus on the crowd, try to how, and it's a little section of how I'm presenting somebody, but how am I going to provide value in that moment? What are people there for, and what experience do I want them to have, and how do I create that for them? So when I can get out of my head and focus on the people, I get through it. But there's just different stages, and even today, before this call, I'm breathing. I'm trying to focus on, okay, how am I going to provide value to get through it? So this is something that I deal with every time I speak. Depending on the audience, depending on the situation, it can get easier or more difficult. But for me, I think the takeaway here is that anybody can learn to do this. Anybody can learn these principles. It does take practice. It does take, I think the shift in the mind is everything. That's what has been the biggest thing for me, is just those little tweaks in the mind. And I'll go through that a little bit more today as we go. But the shift in the mind is everything. And I'm not going to pretend like I'm the best presenter. I'm just saying from where I came from, where I couldn't read in front of my class, I was breathing so hard I couldn't finish my sentence. And it took me a while to get through it. And people are like, what's going on with that guy? Like, what's wrong with him? And that's how I felt. I'm the only guy dealing with this. Everybody else in the class can read. Why can't I read in front of the class? But so from going from that point to where I am today, I've come a long ways. So I just feel like anybody can get there. And why is this important? Because I believe it was Tara that mentioned the other day, we're all in this business as what somebody mentioned, may have been Tara. We're all in this business of presenting and working with people. It's a good skill to learn, and anybody can do it. So if you're one of the people like me that have been afraid to do it, just realize that as you work with your mind, as you work with the different techniques that are taught here, you can get through it, and you can become a great presenter. And the best thing to do is just be yourself, be you, and give the best information that you can provide, and that's going to attract the crowd that is also going to relate to you. So that's the first part on getting through that specific fear. When I was young, so that was the first, I guess, fears. No, I mean, there's other fears, fears of heights, other things I had fears of. But then later on in life, I started to get a different type of anxiety, and it was around my thoughts. And at this point in my life, I knew nothing about law of attraction, nothing about like Eckhart Tolle, nothing about the power of now, nothing at all. I was foreign to anything like this. And all I knew, I do believe in God, I had to work through it. But I began to have all sorts of weird fears. I began to have an identity crisis. I began to fear. I would see maybe a situation with somebody and fear that that was going to be my situation too, or that I already had that, or whatever. It was just all sorts of illogical, irrational fears that in my mind, I'm like, that doesn't make any sense, but it still impacted me. And so I was trying to figure out, how do I get through this? Um, so some of the thoughts, some of the things that came to me throughout my youth. One time I read a scripture, and it was, "As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he." So this is one of the first times I started to kind of separate. I still didn't understand that my thoughts weren't me, but I started to understand that I'm who I am like who I truly know I am deep, deep down inside before me and God. That's who I am. It's not all these other thoughts and fears that are coming through my mind. That's who I am. And I also saw that I'm gonna read this because I wanna. It was this realization I gained over time of going through these fears. I realized that if you have a fear that a certain thing is true, you're afraid of something, right? Your fears may be creating thoughts and emotions that create false perceptions that those things are true. So as you're afraid and you're holding your breath to try to analyze something, we can't get to the correct answer in that space. Abraham Hicks, I'm not sure if anybody of you are familiar with her, but she says we can't get to there from there. So if we're in a state of fear, if we're in a state of anxiety, we're not going to find the answer we're looking for. We're not going to find the truth. So I was living in this state of anxiety going from when I was a teenager, and I was struggling to find truth for me, what the truth was inside. So our emotions can create fears, and then those emotions can reinforce those false beliefs created by our fear. So it's just a cycle. It's a cycle. So until I started to understand the importance of faith versus fear, my dad would say faith and fear can't exist in the same place. So if I started to learn how do I have more faith? And so who was it that said, maybe it been Brooke, that it's okay to be afraid, but when we act, even though we're afraid, that's courage. So how do we move forward with courage? But I had to get past some of these fears because they were kind of paralyzing my life. I was depressed. I remember telling my brother one day that I didn't even care if I lived or died. And I wasn't like suicidal, but I was like frustrated. I was super frustrated. Um, so then as I moved forward, I started to learn these different things. And one thing that came to my mind one day was life is way too wonderful to let fears destroy my happiness. I started to understand that these fears are just they're not real. It's something that's bothering me, but I didn't know how to truly get past them yet. But life is way too wonderful to let fears destroy my happiness. And that allowed me to set it aside for a while as I moved forward. And later on, I want to get through. Okay. Later on, I finally began to understand the importance of love. So when I learned that I could have love and focus in on other people and how I'm going to benefit other people, and if I have a fear concerning another individual for whatever reason, if I can learn to have love towards that person, that conquers all. So the other scripture was, where was that? Give me, sorry, I apologize. Perfect love casteth out all fear, right? So when I learned I can operate with love, that changed it again. That changed my presentation. If I can learn to love my audience, if I can learn to love people and truly try to provide value, that was my presentation. If I can love the people around me, that erodes the fear. And also, how does this apply to the business? If I need to talk to people, which I do, how do I get past the fear of talking to people? Well, if I can get past, again, my fear of why am I afraid? I'm afraid that they might reject me. I'm afraid that what they're going to think of me. I'm afraid of it's all coming back to me, right? Those fears almost always come back to my ego every single time. So if I can then change that and create love, what does that feel like? That means I'm going to focus in on the individual. How could these products potentially change that person's life? So if I truly care about people, instead of me going out and being and acting on fear, how am I going to talk to that person? How's that going to go? How am I going to do this presentation? Now I'm acting on love. How do this what I have in my hands could potentially change this person's life with their health, with their finances. And I'm telling you guys, since I started here with Vital Health Global a little over 4.5 months ago, I've heard of so many life-changing experiences with our products. They truly are changing lives. So what if we present to some people and they may make fun of us or they say no or whatever. And then what if we have the opportunity even if it was one person's life that we completely changed? Because when somebody has an ailment that's keeping them in bed all day or that they can't function or that they are in pain and now they're free, that is incredible for that person. That is life changing. If it was just one person we can do that for, the whole experience is completely worth it. There was a lady that came to a meeting, and this is being recorded. Okay, I'll be careful. Anyway, it's amazing what our products are doing. And I can't, I don't want to go too much into detail because I don't want to get us in trouble. And I know this is I gotta stay compliant. But I've seen so many incredible life-changing experience, guys. It's just amazing. So when we act in love and we think, how many lives can I benefit? It's not just gonna be one, guys. If we continue and get better and better, we're gonna bless the lives of many people. And what happens with the people who have had a change in their health, true change in their health? Most of the time, they can't really stop talking about their change. They're going to tell people about it. Those sometimes become some of our best leaders. In fact, there are people on this call that most likely started because of the product. I'm sure there's a lot of you. And if and then later on decided to actually do the business, right? Because you realize, wow, this helped me and I can help so many other people with this these products, correct? Okay. All right, so let's get into a different kind of fear, which is, well, I kind of mentioned it, is what do people, think about me? What do people think about me? And so I remember a time when I had a realization that there were certain people that had a perception of me that I hated. Like I did not like the way they thought about me. I knew how they thought about me and it bothered me. And I remember like in my head, like, what can I do to change that? Blah, 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 blah. And then I kind of came to the understanding that, you know what? I can't change that. I can't control that. There's no way. It's impossible. They can think whatever they want. And I kind of had to realize it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is how I am before God. That's it. It doesn't matter. And when I came to that understanding, it was very freeing. I stopped worrying so much about what other people think, right? And so that's been a process throughout life as well. There's different situations where that could still come up, but it's been a huge blessing to me because now, for the most part, I care if I feel like I've hurt somebody. I don't want to do that. I don't want to offend somebody, but I don't care about the judgments they have on me, right? And when I came over here to Vital Health, some rumors started flying over in the other company that I was doing this or I was doing that, and I thought it was like I didn't even think it was true until later I got a letter. Sorry, I got to stop. But anyway, I didn't think it was true, and then later I'm like, holy crap, this is actually a deal. Like people actually think this, but it didn't bother me. I'm like, oh well, whatever. My friends are gonna be my friends. The people that believe this or whoever created it, I feel sorry for them. I served them for all this time and they still did that. Okay, that's on them. But like if anybody believed it, they believed it. But if the people that know me, they're gonna still be my friend. They're still gonna be, we're gonna be true to each other. So that I was able to kind of get through that. It didn't even bother me, to be honest. It didn't even really affect me, which I'm grateful, but it could have. That's something that could like takes, oh, how could all these people be thinking this about me and blah blah blah. It doesn't matter. I can't control it. All that matters is how I know I am before God and I move forward and do the best I can. Right. So it's important because in the business, there are people, the we sometimes we get held back by what are people going to think about me, and that's something we really have to get through. Okay. Another thing that's super important. This again, I'm kind of going all over the place, guys. I just want to get through some of the things that have helped me throughout my life. I found that there was a trend between me and all my brothers and sisters in my family. I don't know what it is. It's maybe one of these things we've got to break, this ancestral type things I got to break. But it was a thing where I constantly and often put people above me in my head. And I'm not sure how many people of you have done that, where you're putting and this happens when, oh, I gotta talk to this person about the business, but they're so high up in this, or they're an executive, or they're better than me in this. We tend to, and maybe it's just me, and hopefully you guys don't do this, but I had a tendency to put people above me in my mind. And when I finally identified I was doing that, I was like, wait, this isn't okay. Like, what makes that person any better than me? But first, for me to help myself to do this correctly, I would basically say, and I'm going to kind of paraphrase it because I've kind of changed the way I think, but I would basically say, what makes me better than anybody else? Nothing. They have great potential. They're children of God. That's an incredible potential. You can't even measure that. But what makes them better than me? Nothing, because I'm a child of God. I can't even measure that. And that was kind of something I had to learn to do because I realized it was a thing. Like I would do that all the time, put people above me in my head. And if we can learn to keep ourselves on the same page as people, that also helps us to do better when we approach people, present people. We come from a different place. We're not coming from a place where we think they're going to feel like we're trying to become better than them, or we're acting better than them, but we're also not below them. And I think it helps people realize, oh, we're on the same page. We can connect better. We have a general mutual respect, and I feel like that's a very powerful thing. So again, that's another thing that really helped me to be able to work with people, and doesn't matter where they're from, and just understand, hey, They might have all these great things they've done in their life, which is amazing and that's awesome, but it doesn't mean I have to put them in a space that's above me where I can't communicate with them because I'm so afraid of them. Does that make sense? Hope that helps. Um, but I think it helps with prospecting too, because as you want to go and prospect people, you realize, hey, it doesn't matter where they came from or where I came from. I have value to provide for them, and I'm sure they have value to provide for me. And let's just see where it goes. Let's see what happens. You know? Okay. Okay. Another reason. Let me talk about this a little more, just to kind of mention how this can affect people in society. What happens when somebody gets a diagnosis from a doctor? Many times, if that person doesn't have a strong central core, if the doctor says, "Hey, you have this terminal whatever," there are times when that person literally in within minutes they're like they can't even function. They're in the bed, they can't get back up. The stress that just hit them so hard is overwhelming. But why does that occur? It's because they've put so much trust in that doctor. They put them on such a high pedestal that doctor's word, that authority just completely overwhelms them. They took it hook, line, and sinker, didn't even consider anything else, and their body accepted it and went with it, right? So that's kind of the danger of putting people on a pedestal. I think we need to have respect for people, appreciate people, and recognize the greatness that they are, but at the same time, not to the point where we're diminishing ourselves and where we're not continually maintaining control of who we are and being responsible for ourselves in every way and for our health and understanding that we have God with us, and that's the most important thing and most powerful thing that's going to help us get through everything and trust in Him the most. So no matter what somebody else says or does, always realize, hey, there's a way, right? We can get through this, and there's a way that I can move forward. Alrighty. So I want to get into again a little more about thoughts and understanding. So again, when I was a kid, it took me a long time to really recognize. There was a point where I had some thoughts that were just so. And you guys, what's wrong with Daniel West? I had some terrible thoughts, and they were bad. And I was really really getting down on myself. This is gonna sound like I'm crazy. There was a night, it was so bad, the thing that came to my head. I literally got up and punched myself in the face like 5 times. I was so mad at myself. I was so upset that I could have those thoughts. Like, what is wrong with me? But Brooke mentioned, and this is so true, our thoughts are not us. Okay, our thoughts are not who we are. And this is important because if we have all these thoughts about ourselves, we need to understand where those thoughts are coming from. Those thoughts are the ego. So one of the greatest books I've ever listened to on this topic is Eckhart Tolle. It's The Power of Now. And it's amazing to help us understand and separate our thoughts from ourselves. There was a point where I finally told myself, you know what? I didn't like that thought. I don't know where it came from. I couldn't comprehend how it didn't come from me, but I was like, I didn't like that thought. That was terrible. Like where did that come from? And so I started to kind of make that separation and kind of have that understanding that, that wasn't for me. And so I was able to kind of like forgive myself and move forward. But with the power of now, what he helps us to understand is that our thoughts, a lot of the thoughts are going on in our head every single day, all the time, and especially the fears that are going on. That's all the ego. The ego doesn't like it when we're trying to progress. It doesn't want us to go to a new place, even if it's a great place, even if it's a great thing. If it's a change, the ego doesn't like it because the ego likes us to stay the same. It likes to know the known, not the unknown. So even if we're going to a great place, if it's the unknown, the ego will do all sorts of weird things to stop us. We have all sorts of weird subconscious stuff that comes up, and that can be self-sabotage. It can be a lot of different things that can come up. So it's important to be able to separate those thoughts from who we are and be able to recognize that. And what Eckhart Tolle talks about, this is super interesting. If we will observe those thoughts, kind of sit back and watch all those thoughts coming in and just kind of, again, calmly breathe normal and just observe it, we'll see that the ego also doesn't like to have that recognize. We're recognizing it, we're identifying it, and we're observing it, and those thoughts will eventually diminish, will eventually calm down. So there have been times when I've had like different fears that come up because it happens, and I'll just sit back, relax, observe them, and eventually they dissipate. So as I've learned to meditate, that's where also being able to come. So I'm going to get back to being to something else, but being able to get to the place where of nothing basically and be able to connect with source. That's where we can get to this place where we finally get to where the truth is. Because all these fears and all these things that we're being told in our mind, they're not generally the truth. They're all these different, it's just fear. It's just the ego trying to keep us back or trying to, I'm not going to pretend like I'm the expert, but doing what it does. So how do we get to a place of peace? And what Tara talked about the other day, breathing. So breathe in through the stomach, then up the chest, pause, let it out. That's going to help us get present. And then as we continue to observe thoughts, right, allow them to dissipate, that's going to also help us get present. And when we can finally get present and we can finally connect with source, there's something that happens where we start to feel peace. We start to feel great. We start to be able to connect. We start to be able to, we have all the flow of the correct thoughts. And that's where we can learn. So that's where we're in the place of truth. So whenever we're in anxiety and we're trying to figure something out because we're frustrated, but we want to have an answer, it's always better to take a break, breathe deep, relax. And if this could be like, how do I do better in my business? This could be how do I create the best strategy to get from A to B? Or why do I keep having the same pattern happen over and over again? How do I overcome that pattern? Whatever it may be, if we can get into the space where we're connected with source, we're connected with God, we're in tune, and you'll feel it, that's where those answers start to come. That's where we start to find the solutions. And there's always a solution. There's always a solution. And how do we get better at ABC? That's where those answers come. And that's where I'm having a problem with so and so, my upliner, my downliner, or something. How do I solve it? That's where those problems. That's where that comes. When we can get to that space where we're just connected with source, that's where that can come. So the things that help me to get there, getting grounded, putting my hands on the earth, trying to balance out my energies, doing the breathing, uh, again, observing my thoughts, doing meditation, helping myself get to that space where I finally connect with source. And again, it's really cool. So one of the people I follow is Dr. Joe Dispenza. He's got some great meditations that help to get there. But there's a lot of ways to do it. And again, I keep bringing up Tara, but I'm just so grateful for the breathing exercise because it's one of those things that helped me to finally a little bit quicker get present because that's one of the things you got to do. You got to get present. So, thank you for that. Okay, let's see. I know we've gotten through most of it. I just want to talk a little bit more about how love can impact everything and how we can create a stronger business through duplicating with love. Okay. If we are duplicating with love, then how are we treating our downlines? How are we treating the people around us? We're treating them with respect. We're treating them with freedom. We're not trying to control or manipulate them. We're not trying to force them to do a certain thing for our benefit. We're always looking at how can we help them have success. And if we can help our people focus in on their goals and dreams and have success, and we just support that and we empower that, that's where we're going to have the best success in the business. And this is speaking of just me observing for 17 years in network marketing and watching what happens with different organizations. Yes, you can get results by manipulation and by making people feel forced, but it's never long term. They end up losing their own drive. So if we can lead with love, those people they're gonna feel that support. We're just gonna help them grow. And if they want to do it differently than us, let's respect that. As long as it's not something that's hurting somebody, let's respect that because that's where creativity comes in. That's where we can have innovation. Let's respect that. And let's just love people with unconditional love and help them grow. Focus on their business, help them reach their goals and dreams. And as they do, we will. So the more people we can help reach their goals and dreams, the more people we're going to help. And that's leading with love. So if we can also help people understand the importance of providing value from the beginning, from the time we sign them up, how are we going to help them provide value for their downlines, for their prospects, and understand this principle? Because I'm telling you guys, when I understand the principle of me not worrying about myself, because there's some things I should focus on. I speak too fast. I'm doing it right. I've been doing it this presentation. And when I'm in Spanish, it's even worse. There have been times when I'm speaking so fast in Spanish, I listen to myself afterwards. I don't even understand what I said. I'm like, that's crazy. There's no way anybody else understood me either. So I gotta work, but for the most part, if I focus on me during the presentation, it's not gonna work. It's not gonna be good because I'm worried. I'm coming from a place of fear of how are people going to perceive me. That's not going to work for me, at least for me. I have to focus on a place of value. So if that one little concept for me changed my capacity to present my efficacy of presenting completely. And I'm not, again, not comparing myself to other people. There's people that present much better than me, But I'm just saying it was like a night and day switch, and all it took was that one change in my mentality of providing value instead of worrying about myself. So how fast can we grow our business if everybody that we bring in, we're immediately helping them understand that how they can provide value for people, how they can bless people's lives with these products, how they can bless people's lives with this business, and how they can the way they can go about their prospecting activities in order to achieve that. Because then it shifts their mind immediately to helping people in so many different ways. And that's fun. That's just amazing. If we can do a business where you're making great money and you're helping people change their lives, there's no better business than that. There's no better business than network marketing for that reason when it's done right. So again, if we can do it with love, that's going to be the best. And also when we're speaking with love, what do? We edify them, we empower them, we're honest with them in a loving way. If we see something that could potentially help them, we're going to be honest about it. We're going to help them. We're going to give constructive criticism. We're going to help them grow, right? In a way that's tactful and loving, as long as in the best way we can. Okay, and as we move forward with love, this is my last thing. I'll end it. That's what helps us create a higher level energy vibration. If I'm stuck in my fear and anxiety and worrying about myself, guys, that the people will feel it. Anybody we go talk to without in that space, they're gonna feel it, and they're gonna respond according to how we are feeling ourselves. But if I'm out there, if I can create that through that meditation, through connecting to Source and connecting to God and being aligned, if I can create that high energy level vibration before going out the door or before making those phone calls, before my prospecting activities, that's gonna raise my energy level vibration, and they're gonna respond accordingly. They're gonna feel it. And you can tell the people that have this type of energy because you can see them when they walk in a room. You can feel it from them. And each one of us has that inside. It's already there. It's already inside of it. It's not something that's exterior. And that's part of I guess, the misconception that we have sometimes is that we have to go somewhere else to get it. When in reality, it's how do we tune into ourselves and spend enough time looking at like helping ourselves to get there so that we can tune into that, feel that energy level vibration, and then maintain it as much as possible. And that's, there's all sorts of different techniques that I'm sure we're going to continue to learn from the amazing speakers we have here in the AM Power. But that's what I wanted to share today, guys, that there's just,